Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Mania 7 Key World Cup 2025. We're about to kick off a really massive block of matches to close out what has been an amazing round of 32 weekend so far, and what better way to get things started than I bring you guys our next match. It is going to be New Zealand taking on Taiwan in this round of 32 showdown. As always, my name is Sparky, and I am joined in the commentary booth by none other than Chillier Pear. Fancy seeing you here, Chillier. How's it going?
Good morning, Sparky. I seem to have taken a wrong turn on my way to the World Cups this year.
You're very far away from standard. Hey, but I'm not complaining. It's very nice to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. I'm normally on the other side of things, but you know, the way that matches work out is not always in favor for our team. But we wanna bring the best streams and content possible, and this is what happens sometimes, but I think this is going to be an exceptional matchup. The seeds are quite a bit closer. We talk about this a lot, especially with 7 Key branching out to the round of 32 this year. Doubling, effectively, the number of teams that we have participating means that we have the opportunity for things like a 14th versus 19th seed matchup, which tends to be exciting in some cases. Those closer seeds make it possible for some back and forth on points. We've seen a couple of matches this weekend that have hit that point, namely matches like Spain-Sweden, our 16th, 17th seed matchup, going 5-3, just narrowly missing tiebreaker. I mean, what are your thoughts knowing these New Zealand and Taiwan rosters? What's going through your head when you see these in terms of a match outlook here?
I mean, it's one of those cases where You look at this New Zealand roster, they've always been in and around this like 10 to 20-ish seed in looking back in recent years, or always just been like in the periphery. So seeing them having quote unquote the seed advantage going into this matchup in comparison to Taiwan, it's going to be pretty interesting overall, where we're going to see some back and forth. I imagine these two teams are gonna. Let me take a step back here. I feel like the protects and bans are gonna give us a lot of information once we get into the match proper, as to where these teams' headspaces are. Because when you have this really close seed discrepancy in comparison to something like our earlier match where we had China versus Mexico, 2 versus 31, it's like, okay, usually when you can kind of peg the lower seeded teams as wanting to trend towards this upper half of the map, while all these rice picks become like prime real estate for them to hang out in, whereas these higher seeded teams go for like these LN hybrid picks, really showing off a different aspect that some lower seeded teams might not have in their tool set. But when you get these like mid-seeded teams going up against each other, there's really going to be this phase of them feeling each other out. They might start to venture into each other's realm of comfort because of the fact that Venn diagram of these two teams going at each other begins to overlap in a sense where there might not be an advantage, a clear-cut advantage on either style of map type, whether it be rice, whether it be LN. And that's really where those hybrids are going to come into consideration, where both these teams might ignore the two like concrete play styles and go for those hybrids to try and figure out, okay, what is going to be our advantage going into the rest of this match.
I see. I'm gonna kind of throw it out as a hypothetical question here, and I'm gonna utilize your skill set as an apt mania user to delve into this a little bit more in terms of the pool and how this looks for these two players. So obviously, every single World Cup, and this goes for everyone here, we have teams that have things that they're very good at. They have the option to either be more practiced or assemble their roster around being very good around a specific point in the map pool. And with these two teams, what are we expecting to see, especially with a seed difference that isn't so large, but does still have some discrepancy? But we're also seeing a pool that is still slightly easier than qualifiers. The benefit of having that round of 32 over the round of 24 that we had last year is that we do have to go slightly dropped in star rating from the qualifiers and difficulty as well, so that it matches up with the next round. But we have a lot of variation in this pool. Even within the rice category alone, you have all of the different skill sets in here. You've got your standard ones, obviously, but it branches out. You've got your speed, you got your core jacks, you got your techs, you got mixed rice, and then you go into LNs as well, and it's very diverse. You've got the density LN pick, you've got your inverse, you've got your hybrids, you've got your tech hybrids. So, you know, I'm seeing some repeats. I'm seeing some tech maps in here. I'm seeing some generic. Where does that lie for both teams here? Where does, let's say, our high-seeded team here, New Zealand, sit on the spectrum of how they're going to hold Taiwan, a lower-seeded team, out of this match despite having a good grip on it?
It's really going to come down to if New Zealand feels comfortable enough getting into a bit of an accuracy test, like you were mentioning. It's like, because of the fact that we're in round of 32 in comparison to the qualifiers, it's a bit of basically like a full step down from where these two teams were having to play at for the qualifiers. That whole star rating element, the fact that you're not seeing as many difficult concepts in some of these charts, it's going to be whether or not New Zealand is comfortable enough going into picks like Rice 3 or Rice 2, the Core Jack, Core Stream picks in the Rice side of the pool, because of the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, it's like these lower seeded teams tend to gravitate towards those more, dare I say, standard style of picks where there's really not a lot of technical elements. There's not a lot of like grace notes littering the playfield. You're not having to do intricate patterning, intricate rhythms all over the place, like Rice 4, Rice 5, our dedicated tech pick, our dedicated mixed rice pick. And if they can hold their own on the first 3 picks of the rice pool and show that they have a bit of an accuracy advantage, like they can pull off these really impressive team scores somewhere in the ballpark of like 980,000 points for both the players, and keep the misses to an absolute minimum, because while I do say that these are like the bog standard picks, they're considered standard picks because everybody in this tournament can comfortably play them. So if they do find themselves tripping up here and there, where they find a miss here, or they find a rush of like 200s even in some cases, they might be inadvertently giving away breakpoints if they're not too careful. If they feel like, okay, we can go into those picks, pick those. And that's just considering the rice side of the pool. We haven't even considered the LN and hybrids. If New Zealand is really feeling themselves and can go into something like LN1, that full dedicated inverse pick, it has been polarizing this entire weekend, catching protects, catching bans, catching, basically a very high priority has been placed on this inverse pick, because of the fact that it's one of those skill sets that it takes a very practiced mindset to be able to coordinate 7 columns at a time at this BPM. Like, you go to 4 key and you see 4 key inverse, and it's like, okay, cool, this is hard, but it's manageable because of the fact that you're not having to coordinate so many lanes. When you get to 7 key inverse, it's like, okay, you're stretching your focus across 3 extra lanes, and things just completely fly by the wayside. But with that being said, we are finally into the match, and we get the rolls out here immediately, and we see a 79-27 here, and It looks like everybody's just rolling at this point. They've been kept waiting long enough. Everybody's excited. We're gonna see everybody take a shot at trying to get the highest number. Unfortunately, only the first ones count here. So Taiwan wins.
New rules on the rolls here. Summation of all rules in 3 seconds. Let's go. Switching it up.
Literal quick maths.
Exactly. So I guess this comes into the part of the match here. We've talked about the map pool. We've talked about, the seed discrepancy between these two teams. Now we really get to see it in action. Now we get to see we've got 5 points for both teams here. Clean slate starting off at the beginning, and 2 rosters that have a lot to prove for themselves right now. You've got history on both sides here. Taiwan, usually a team sitting in that middle to low range of MWC 7 key. They placed 13th to 16th last year. They have not played actually in several years prior, but usually sit around that lower placement, except for dropping all the way back to 2016, where they actually placed in the top 5th to 6th out of all of the teams we have in this tournament, when compared to New Zealand, usually a team who ended up falling in qualifiers. Now that is important because qualifiers used to be far more restrictive with Mania World Cup, given the fact that we had a lower amount of teams that were allowed into the bracket stage. But that changes how these rosters are able to pick, ban, play around these map pools and use their list of users to their benefits. Taiwan last year only had 2 players total, and the only one remaining from last year is Hero Jeff. So they've actually added a player to their ranks, which does give them a little bit more versatility in my mind. When looking at New Zealand, they also added a player to their roster. However, with the added exception of about 66% of their roster, 2 out of 3 of their players remaining for this year. When we look at a lot of other game modes and a lot of other World Cups, having legacy rosters does make a bit of a difference in a lot of cases. You're less nervous, you're more comfortable with the environment, maybe you have a bit more versatility as a player. Where are we thinking that comes into play in a 7-key standard here, especially going into picks and bans and how they're strategizing to go about this very small map pool here?
Yeah, it's one of those where I feel like already we've gotten into this first protect from Taiwan, and that's already given us a lot of information. I was alluding to this upper half of the rice pool, rice 1 through 3, being like our quote-unquote standard picks. Everybody's comfortable playing stuff like that. And sure enough, Taiwan opting to protect rice 3, wanting to keep it around, wanting to get into what's going to, I believe, be a bit of a accuracy duel between these 2 rosters, where it's going to be a showcase of, okay, can you keep your ratio as clean as possible, avoid the 200s, avoid the misses, and show us that you can basically play what is going to be, dare I say, the easiest pick in the pool probably, to absolute perfection. And New Zealand answering back with rice 5 is not surprising. It is one of the harder picks in this pool for the rice side, and as we get into it, I was mentioning it's like these lower seeded teams want to go for these comfortable standard picks, and New Zealand maybe sensing something here, wanting to go for the mixed rice, something a little bit harder, a little bit more physically demanding in terms of the variety of pattern structures that can be found in that chart, and getting rid of LN1. Unsurprising, I mentioned earlier, it's incredibly polarizing, this pick, having to navigate that, New Zealand not wanting to deal with it, and hybrid 1 going to be removed by Taiwan as well. One of the harder hybrids in this pool, maybe wanting to keep LN2, LN3 as our density and basically wildcardy LN. Easier than LN1 by a long stretch, but I feel like this is going to be a bit of a stretch where we're just going to play this rice pool, and if any picks remain after that, they're just going to figure it out.
Gosh, that is something we see so often, and I'm trying to draw parallels to everything else, and it's so similar across every World Cup. There are simply matches where the confident picks are gonna run out for both sides. They're gonna disappear really quickly. And then it's a gamble. Who is more well-rounded? Who's on it today? Who's ready to play the game at 10 UTC for this? Now, both of these teams very comfortable here, luckily. We don't have, you know, opposite sides of the world playing at this time, luckily. But we are jumping into high score, well-known. It's a cut version, however, so 2 minutes and 28 seconds here. This is Cord Jacks. This is a strong start to this match. Even for the Rice Pool here, this is going to really kind of bring out the strengths in both of our teams early here. We've got half legacy, half new in for both teams right now. Robeats and Hero Jeff, both returning players from 7 key years past. Worms and vv2357640506. I don't know how else to honestly go about that one, but
probably gonna go VX.
VX, yeah.
Cut out some there.
Simplified, yeah. We're gonna see what this brings us as a start here. This is a Taiwan pick to bring us into the introduction of this match. 5 points to go. 5 points on both sides, open for the taking. As we get into the intro here, very slow compared to right about now when we actually start. Oh
Yeah,
no, that's right. There's a longer intro.
It's quite a bit of a build before we get into that first drop proper. And once we get into that drop proper, I think you alluded to it earlier, that fresh face composition of these rosters where there's old guard with new guard being mixed in, and the composure that the players are going to have to show off here as VX finds the first drop, going into the first drop and second quarter of the map, already giving New Zealand a bit of an advantage as everybody crosses that 400 combo cap. VX going to need to start rebuilding here. Thankfully, it was before the first major cutoff point and not going to do as much damage, but it is going to give New Zealand quite a bit of a cushion to work with going into this back half now. About a miss in the back pocket and a couple of opportunities to find some slip-ups as Robeats actually trades that miss before too long with half the map still left to go here and immediately shrinks this lead back down to about 5,000 points.
That's exactly what you want to see if you're Taiwan. You want that in, you want that, and it does look like it was Bancho, actually. We are getting misled here as New Zealand continues to maintain the lead here. I'll buy it. Like you said, Sparky, a small margin here. We are starting to approach the ending sections of the map here, and that is going to make things very difficult for Taiwan, but all is not lost yet. That higher seeded team showing their consistency, showing this confidence on the opening Rice picks here. But as we get into this breakdown section right now, there is still possibility. Time shrinking very, very fast, and I think we're slowly passing that point of no return here if nothing else changes.
Yeah, for sure. This outro really doesn't pull any punches. We start to see these core jack structures begin to branch out across both hands, of real focus on consistency, balance between being able to handle these repetitive structures on both sides of the aisle. And as it stands, New Zealand really up to the task here as the last couple of nodes begin to rain down, and the first breakpoint actually going to go the way of New Zealand, able to take that Rice 3 pick away from Taiwan by a margin of 22,000 points. A pretty convincing victory overall, a singular 50 from Robeats. So it was thinking about giving it a miss, but decided to hold on to the combo there, fortunately enough for them. But I mean, honestly, those ratios are nigh untouchable, nearly tied with each other.
That is exceptional gameplay from New Zealand and Taiwan to start us off there. Really, really unfortunate start for them, and it would have, like you said, been very, very close without that singular break. But you got to start somewhere. Higher seeded team does take the lead. It's not what you want to see early in the match if you're Taiwan. But again, these are both two teams that have generally been early stage teams in MWC 7 key Worlds past. So there really should be some comfortable picks coming out from both sides at the start. Slip-ups are inevitable, though. And as we go into Hybrid 2, already deviating from that Rice pool, we're going into a bit more of a technical pick here. The pick onto the Kyomyumu. Absolutely. These are legacy names if I have ever seen it here. One of the New Zealand players of all time, do you fart? being being rallied in by Robeats here. Hero Jeff and VX going to be staples of Taiwan today, it seems. Really going to rock this one out. They do only, again, have a 3-player roster, so a little bit less variability in that sense, but we are really looking for that breakpoint back early. We don't have a lot of wiggle room here. Having 5 points on the board means that realistically you maybe have 2 or 3 picks to get that breakpoint back before things start to get dangerous, and with how close these picks could potentially be on both sides, that does leave us with a lot of variability here. Both teams maintaining at the start. Obviously, Axe sitting a little bit lower. This technical pick far more involved than the core Jex.
Yeah,
what's your
sure. Oh, and that was a pretty nasty drop down into that high 98% range. Couple of slider breaks through into this next section. We start to see the Rice technicality, and with these hybrids, it's going to be a real question of can these rosters handle the transitions between the hard island sections going into those intricate Rice patterns in between, because you do get to these calmer chorus sections, and VX gonna be the next one to drop. No more full combos on the side of Taiwan. Gonna give New Zealand quite a bit of cushion to work with here. 22,000 points, a couple of misses in the back pocket, and having much higher accuracy than their Taiwanese counterparts right now. Robeats, most of all, basically just head and shoulders over everybody else in this lobby for the moment. 99.6% accuracy to their name, basically carrying their roster through into this last third of the map.
An unbelievable benefit here, and there goes another break from VX, lowering that accuracy, dropping that combo cap once again, and that is just more and more score over to New Zealand here, showing, again, that consistency, that preparedness for these early stage matchups here, and that's really what you want to see when you're in these round of 32s, right? It's that consistency. Are you able to replicate your performance time and time again? Luckily for the side of Taiwan, to keep them at least somewhat in this, Hero Jeff has pulled a nice recovery from some early slip-ups here, but there is simply nothing you can do against this New Zealand roster. Robeats finally finding a break. Do you fart? The GOAT of New Zealand holding it down into the end of Kyoyomu here as they look to consolidate that break point against Taiwan.
Yeah, successfully taking advantage of that early breakpoint opportunity and not even needing to expend their protect to do it. Usually we see teams immediately go for those protects to guarantee a double up there, but a pretty convincing victory overall. And if you are Taiwan, you start to maybe get a little bit nervous. You've changed the playstyle a little bit. You go down from the Rice to the hybrids, and you see how well New Zealand was able to handle the switch up in playstyle, and there goes potentially another avenue they could have pivoted towards if they started to lose a bit of confidence in their ability to out-ratio New Zealand on those Rice picks. So, I mean, pretty good scores overall, but gonna need to pick up the pace a little bit here lest they want to avoid getting swept by New Zealand here. But it's still very early going. They have their next pick coming through here, a chance to maybe right the ship a little bit, maybe go into something else they might feel comfortable with. I wouldn't be surprised if they threw out something like Rice 1 or Rice 2, but we'll have to wait and see here.
I agree. I think Rice 1 would be a nice switch up for them right now in this particular moment. Again, we are looking to be 3 picks into this match now, and that's potentially 3 picks for New Zealand if Taiwan doesn't make a turnaround here. And in a scenario of a best of 9, that is kind of the point of no return, right? You want to hold it before that 50% mark in the match. You really start to have far less wiggle room after that point. And with Taiwan still having a pick on the board right now, that effectively means that they're only 1 point down if they're able to steal that one away, leaving New Zealand to pick up the pieces on their own pick in order to maintain their 2-point lead in this match, which is already a significantly better scenario than otherwise. And with that being said, Taiwan has opted to go in for the Rice 4, so we're going to keep into the tech category right now with Vanguard 3, although a far less simplistic tech, might I add. Vanguard 3 very well known as a rhythmically intensive, very involved map. This is the focus up pick right now, and Taiwan maybe looking to catch New Zealand off guard with something a bit more unconventional here.
Yeah, absolutely. The elevated OD kind of lends itself to that as well. I need to focus up. You're not going to have that same wiggle room as something like the LN picks, the hybrid picks, or even some of these Rice picks where it goes down to like OD7, maybe even OD6 sometimes, depending on what you decide to play. So pretty spot on there with kind of lock in to handle some of these intricate rhythms that we're going to be seeing. I think 2L kind of a mainstay at this point, kind of synonymous with the word tech. It translates across every game mode. It feels like that you hear 2L, you're gonna hear and see some really interesting decisions being made with regards to what the mapper wants you to hit at any given time.
Isn't that the way? I feel like tech, yeah, that is just so expected, I think, and Vanguard 3 leads itself to being so close into that category as well. Again, even in the realm of possible tech picks that exist in 7 key alone, even there is just such a range of, is it rhythmically simplistic? Is it faster? Or do we have the rhythm changes? Like you said, do we have that OD scaling as well? There is so much to keep track of here that it really is a focus check half the time. It is, are you paying attention? Are you ready? Have you practiced this map before? And with some of those early round matches, we see there are always the cases where there are some players that do just end up practicing more than others. Some are just confident in these early stages, and some want to put in the work a little bit more on the front end. And this pick might be able to show us potentially where we sit on that spectrum right now. It is going to sit quite closely here at the start. Maybe a slight advantage for New Zealand right now, just again on Worms being pretty confident at the start here, but a lot to come and a lot to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And in that whole analysis, we mentioned full roster swap for New Zealand. Worms and Koyu checking in for this pick in particular, maybe able to withstand this elevated OD, this technical, awkward style of pick. And as we continue on here into the back half, Worms actually the first one finding a drop here, but not a lot of damage being bled over to Taiwan for right now. The score is shrinking, but off the back of this high accuracy that Worms was able to maintain and the trade back from VX going into the second half, no harm, no foul. But Koyu finding a drop now for New Zealand, a full combo reset on their side, not going to leave them with any significant combo, neither of them above that 400 combo cap. And this is an opportunity for Taiwan. They might not have the accuracy to mount that much of a challenge, but as VX starts to build back up, if they can get themselves back up over that 99% mark, they can definitely start doing some damage, especially with Worms finding yet another drop here going into the last quarter. This is the first lead that Taiwan's had this entire match. 1,000 points. It's a slender lead, but a lead nonetheless. Can they hang on here to this ending?
They're going to keep it. I think they're going to keep it. Hero Jeff holding it down. 99.4 still going strong, and VX with a beautiful recovery from two really tough looking breaks, but Worms and Koyu just barely not able to hold on in the end. They do pull it back. Hero Jeff trying to do whatever possible there. An exceptional play, some decent work, but again, that accuracy really comes through overall for New Zealand. That team consistency, Taiwan simply not able to hold it. All the work put in there, and it is so close. Hero Jeff, the highest score in the lobby. Sometimes that's the way it works. Consistency shows through, even with the breaks.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if you're Taiwan, you look back on that one, it's like, we could have had them, but it's definitely one of those cases where you need to put yourself in the position to capitalize on those potential openings. And they had it for just a moment, but just not having that second person to be able to lend that supporting score being the undoing there. But I mean, kudos to them for going unconventional, going into the Rice 4 pick as opposed to like the Rice 1, Rice 2 to kind of throw New Zealand off. And if they can they're gonna have one more pick in this match. They can look at that information and be like, okay, that's the most amount of misses we've seen from New Zealand on a Rice chart. Maybe we open ourselves up to Rice 5 for our last pick, or potential last pick, to try and earn themselves that point to extend this match a little bit further. But for right now, not in the cards for them. It is New Zealand's pick, and they're gonna opt to go for our pseudo mini tiebreaker. A lot of people have coined this one as. It is, dare I say, the hardest map in this pool. It is gonna be Crash Landing Rendezvous. Hybrid 3 coming through here as New Zealand tries to turn the screw, take another, capitalize again on another breakpoint being given to them as we see the full roster swap once again. Robies and Tuyufart coming back for New Zealand here.
This is not only a switch up from New Zealand in terms of the overall flow of this match, but like you said, we're kicking up that star rating. We're pulling the intensity towards the higher end of the scale again. We're also pulling the length up to the higher end of the scale. 3 minutes and 15 seconds really makes you have to be ready for this map. Hence why it's called a mini tiebreaker. You do have to put in just a little bit extra over those usual picks here, and accompanied by the higher level of difficulty. This is really New Zealand just skill checking Taiwan right now, and by virtue of it, potentially Hero Jeff, who seems to have been the standout player for them in this match. And with a couple of early breaks here from Robeats and some significant act drops from Do You Fart, we are seeing an early lead for Taiwan, unlike that we've seen in other previous picks, which could be a silver lining for them.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the opening that Taiwan's been looking for this entire match. So far, it feels like they need to get some of these breakpoints back, and what better way to do it than by showing that they're not going to go down quietly. As you mentioned, you kind of alluded to it, New Zealand may potentially pulling this out as a bit of a skill check kind of a pick, and right now backfiring on them as they had a bit of a torrid time getting through that introduction already into the second quarter of the chart. But because of the fact that this is one of the longer charts, the longest chart in this pool, barring the tiebreaker, there's plenty of time for recovery. But Do You Fart the next one to fall. 2 FCs still left on the side of Taiwan going into this next section, and this is the largest lead that they managed to pull out. 9,000 points to the good, but VX finds the drop on the style change going into the next quarter. And does he just shrink the lead for Taiwan? Does New Zealand have the positioning to start to make some inroads in this lead now?
I think they've got it by just a little bit. They're going to sneak this one back in, but traded misses on the bottom half of that screen really are just only serving to keep this a little bit more even. It's a battle between Hero Jeff and Robeats. Who can hold on more strongly into the finish here? We are past the halfway point of the map right now. A slight lead for New Zealand, but it is microscopic in the grand scope of this map here. VX and Do You Fart is really that duo we're looking for right now, and VX does lose out on the combo, but so does Robeats, and that's going to give Taiwan just a little bit more. That's all that they need, is one more miss, one more drop in that accuracy to pull this one back, and it's so close coming into the ending here. Can Hero Jeff be the savior for Taiwan as Robeats continues to find more breaks?
Yeah, that's the highest accuracy for New Zealand, starting to find a number of misses. Do You Fart able to hold on to the combo, able to stave off some of these advantages from Taiwan, but as it stands, they can only take so many more. But as we get into this break section, dare I say the calmest part of the chart before it really ramps back up, VX finding a couple of misses that aren't going to get answered back here. Last level of chart still left to go here, and I think New Zealand might have weathered the worst of it. It was looking dicey at the beginning, but now a comfortable 20,000 point lead could vanish in an instant. It's not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, but this is the strongest position that they've had this entire map so far. Can they close it out here as we reach these last couple of notes?
We're almost to the end, and VX continuing to find some struggles at the end here. I mean, we're seeing, 4, 5, 6 breaks across the board, and with Robeats trading it out, it's really just not going to be enough. Do You Fart down there on the bottom, really holding this one in for New Zealand. The teamwork between the New Zealand members today and the consistency, it's going to come up again and again and again, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but that was just a team performance difference for New Zealand right there. And small in margin, it might look across the board there with Hero Jeff putting up an exceptional performance, by the way. Look at that. But
Yeah.
VX struggling just a little bit more on the end there. 98% accuracy, 11 misses. Really just is a little bit too far gone for how New Zealand is playing today, to no fault of their own.
Yeah, absolutely. A full combo. I think one of the few FCs we've seen in this match going unrewarded there from Hero Jeff. I mean, like I said, it was looking really good at the beginning for Taiwan, able to pull off that big advantage for themselves, just unfortunately not able to see it through to the end. If that map was maybe like a minute and a half shorter, like some of the other picks in this pool, they could have been able to pull one out there, and getting one of those breakpoints back, but unfortunately not going to be the case as they opt to go for the LN density pick of the pool. It's going to be white canvas, measurably shorter, minute 52, but with that comes the added risk of these misses going to be amplified, it feels like, because of the fact that you have less room for recovery.
That it is, and as we come into our, potentially, what looks to be our... I'll say potentially our final pick here. It has not looked good for Taiwan in this match thus far, and I will hand that to New Zealand for really just making this look very, very good for them. But we're switching it up once again. We're jumping back to the LNs. We're going for some density now. We're really going to change things up from the previous couple of picks here. And we're going to see if Taiwan has what it takes to get themselves on the board here before New Zealand gets their last pick and inevitably tries to put an end to their run up in this top bracket here.
Yeah, not out of it just yet, but gonna definitely need to kick it up a notch as we get this map underway. We see Clock check in for Taiwan, gonna give VX a bit of a break here going into this dedicated LN pick, and Clock actually be the first one to find a slider break very early on. Thankfully is very early on, but already crossing that 4-inch combo cap is everybody else, so New Zealand gonna be able to establish a bit of a foothold in this chart through the first quarter as they eke out about a 7,000 point advantage going into this next section.
It's going to be small, but it's there, and it's a trend we've seen in this match for quite some time. New Zealand taking those early leads, really just being strong out of the gate. There have been a couple of picks where Taiwan has pulled it back, somewhere around the middle, but they have not yet been able to hold it all the way through. And that's the key difference here as we continue to progress through the map. Again, passing the halfway point. All players looking confident right now. Really not much that's going to change in the score difference department right now until we see something major. Oh, and there's the major thing on the bad side, but Robeats to trade that miss out does keep this significantly safer for Taiwan than it would have been otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you are Taiwan, you take those trades any day of the week. But the fact that they're going at it once again, Clock and Robeats not able to get themselves back above water in terms of their combo there, trading in a miss or two. But actually, in that second exchange, New Zealand able to really balloon this lead off the back of Robeats keeping that miss a lot cleaner. They still have the highest accuracy in this lobby, so able to mitigate some of the potential score loss. It did shrink a little bit, but immediately recovered itself as the last couple of notes rained down, and New Zealand going to be able to take that last breakpoint in this match, secure the win for themselves by a score of 5-0. A wonderful team score, very balanced overall. For them to close this match out, dare I say, pretty convincingly to start this block off.
That is extremely convincing. I don't think you can get much better than a 5-0, and I don't think New Zealand could have expected better things for their performance in this match. Again, a team that has very consistently been on that lower end of performance for 7 Key World Cup here, really making a show for themselves. They've extended their roster, they've continued working on it, and look where it's gotten them right into the round of 16 in that upper bracket. They will be facing, unfortunately, an extremely strong roster in the Philippines next weekend, so best of luck to them, because that is a powerhouse. They are going up against a very strong contender for that podium this year, being a top 3 seed, and Taiwan will be falling down to the lower bracket to face off against the 30th seeded Lithuania. So neither of these two teams gone yet, still plenty from them left in 7 Key World Cup this year, but that is a big congratulations to New Zealand and an end to our block for just a little bit now, Sparky, but we've got plenty of more matches to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this upcoming match is going to be one that's very exciting. I think a byproduct of expanding the format, we're going to have France taking on Macau, making their 7-key MWC. Wait, have they played? Maybe in before the 7-key hiatus. They might have been in and around, but re-debut potentially for Macau in the 7-key World Cup, and that will be taking place about an hour from now. We're gonna go ahead and shut things down here before we start off that, and then that'll kick off a super block. It is just non-stop matches until we're essentially done with the round of 32 weekend. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and take our leave for now, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back for that France versus Macau match. Take care, everybody.
VV2357640506